Hi everyone, my name is Christopher, and for my Stackathon, I wanted to design an app that could work with Dropbox. Dropbox has a feature called selective sync, which lets you store things in your cloud without syncing them up on local storage. Selective sync is great for keeping things safe in your cloud without taking up disk space. The problem with selective sync is that in order to access those files, you need to go to a browser, go to Dropbox, find the file, download it, then you can make your changes, and then to save it, you'd have to upload it to Dropbox again. I thought, wouldn't it be great if there were an app that could build a folder on your desktop that cloned the directory structure of your Dropbox online, not the local copy, but the one that included all your selectively synced folders, and then populated it with sort of dummy files that would have the extensions and file names of your selectively synced files, but not actually contain the information. That is, not actually take up any space. Then, when you tried to pick one, the app, kind of behind the scenes, would make a call to the Dropbox API, grab the real folder, switch it in, and then open it. And then after like maybe a set timeout of inactivity, return it to Dropbox and take it off your hard drive. Wouldn't that be great? Now I've actually got some of it working. Like I can clone my Dropbox folder online and populate it with dummy files. There was a small complication there. The Dropbox API endpoint for getting file metadata only returns 100 files or folders worth of metadata at a time. In comparison, I have close to 10,000 folders and files in my Dropbox. So I had to set up the logic kind of recursively so that if there are more entries, it makes another call to the API. I'm able to build a clone and populate it with dummy files in 24 seconds, which is an eternity in JS time. And I think the bottleneck there isn't so much the logic of rebuilding the file structure as it is the 95 calls to the API. And so, and I'm fine with that. You'd only have to do it once, and then you just sort of scan for changes. The problem with the idea, it turned out, was dealing with the file system. Now, if you just want these files available to a user, as in a human being, it wouldn't have been that hard. I would have made a desktop app with Electron. I would have set up the HTML and CSS to look like a Finder view, put links on that look like files, and when you double-click on one, when you double-click on one, then behind the scenes it would seem to open it up, and it was just magic. But I wanted my app I want those files available to other apps. Like the dream here was to move my iTunes library, like 150 gigs of music, into my cloud, and only really have one track on my local storage at a time. But in order to do that, you need to intercept calls to the file system so that they are redirected to your fake file system. Otherwise, let's say it takes half a second to download a file. That is also an eternity in JavaScript time. And so probably iTunes would give you that annoying message. Oh, we couldn't find that folder. Would you like to locate it manually? Locating things manually is exactly the problem I'm trying to avoid. So that's where I got to know Fuse, which is a module. It stands for File System in User Space. And what it basically does is it extends the kernel of your operating system so that you can have a third-party file system in user space where you can actually sort of customize the varying methods that happen in a file system. I never got this part to work. I'm still not convinced that this idea couldn't pan out. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I would use it all the time. But one thing I learned was that there's a lot more going on in your file system than just read and write. References to specific folders and files have something called inodes, which was a new thing these were all new things to me. And anytime your file, anytime you make a request to anywhere near a folder or file, it does a get attributes call on it, which was another nightmare to try to figure out. Basically, at this point, you can kind of see this is what not to do. This is an idea not working. But at this point, what I'm doing is I'm threading the node.fs methods into my third-party system. And I think there might be some problems with that because it's a virtual drive. It's not a real one. So I'm not sure if the path, as I'm passing it in, corresponds to the real path, which is why in a lot of these you see first a real path and then the actual call. Doesn't even matter because it's not working. But I would be eager to hook this thing up and then expand functionality to include Google Drive and I don't know, whatever else, what other clouds people are using. And that is basically the idea, learning experience. Thank you.